There comes a moment in life when your silence is misquoted, your kindness is misinterpreted, and your words, your truth, are twisted into a weapon used against you. And you sit there, heart pounding, hands trembling, wondering how the truth became the lie. You weren't trying to hurt anyone. You weren't trying to start a war. You were simply trying to be heard, to be understood. But somehow they made you the villain in a story you never wrote. It's a brutal feeling when someone plays games with your words like they're pieces on a chessboard, moving them out of place, out of context, and out of truth. And you're left picking up pieces of a conversation that never really happened the way they claim it did. But listen to me. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not the problem for speaking from your heart. Today, we're going to talk about how to stand your ground when your voice is under attack. We're going to talk about clarity, power, and holding on to your truth, even when they try to twist it, because they might bend your words, but they will not break your spirit. Let's talk. You ever notice how they smile when you start to lose your temper? That little smirk they give when your voice starts to rise? That's not just coincidence. That's strategy. Because people who twist your words don't care about truth, they care about control. And one of the easiest ways to gain control over you is to pull you into their storm, to light a match and wait for you to burn the whole place down with your emotion. They want you to look like the unstable one. They want you to become the distraction. So when your heart starts pounding, when your face gets hot, when you feel the urge to shout just to be heard, breathe. Breathe before you break. Because when you stay calm in the fire, you expose who's really trying to cause the flames. See, they don't win by being right. They win when you look wrong. That's the game. That's the setup. And the moment you shout, the moment you snap, the moment you say something out of emotion instead of wisdom, boom, they got you. That one moment becomes the headline of the whole story. They'll skip every time you were kind, every time you were clear, and they'll zoom in on the one time you cracked. They'll say, see, this is who they really are. Don't give them that ammunition. You've got to remember, composure is not weakness. It's discipline. It's armor. And in a world full of manipulation, your calm is your protection. Let them yell, let them accuse. You just keep your truth steady and your voice low. Stillness screams louder than chaos ever could. And I know how hard it is. When someone's lying about what you said, twisting your words to paint you in the worst light, it feels like a direct hit to your soul. It's not just disrespect, it's betrayal. Because you trusted them enough to speak, you let your guard down enough to be honest, and now they're using your own words like knives against you. Of course you want to defend yourself. Of course you want to scream, that's not what I meant. But here's the hard truth. You can't defend yourself properly when you're in emotional survival mode. You'll end up saying things you regret, and they'll use those moments to rewrite the whole story. So instead of fighting with fire, fight with poise. Let your restraint speak for you. Staying calm doesn't mean you're okay with what they did. It doesn't mean you're backing down. It means you're refusing to give them the reaction they crave. You're choosing to stay grounded in your truth instead of being dragged into a circus of lies. It takes power to pause. It takes strength to hold back your tongue. But the moment you do, you shift the power dynamic. You stop playing by their rules. They can twist your words all they want, but they can't twist your silence, your peace, your unshaken spirit. That calm presence becomes unsettling to them because they can't manipulate what they can't control. There's something powerful about a person who can be fully aware of the disrespect, fully aware of the betrayal, and still choose to move with grace. That kind of person becomes dangerous to manipulators because you're not reacting on impulse. You're responding with intention. And manipulators can't function without your chaos. Your anger fuels their narrative. Your meltdown becomes their evidence. But when you stay calm, when you don't flinch, when you don't stutter, you become unpredictable. And that unpredictability makes them nervous because now they don't know what move to make next. They've lost control of the conversation and you've gained control of your power. But let's not pretend it's easy. Let's not pretend calm comes naturally when your name is being dragged through the mud. You'll feel that lump in your throat. You'll feel your body shaking. You want to scream just to get anyone to understand your side. But real strength shows up in those moments where you could explode and you choose not to. When your silence is louder than their accusations, when your presence speaks louder than their performance. That's not suppression, that's wisdom. Because some arguments don't deserve your voice, they deserve your absence. They twist your words to get a reaction. It's a bait, it's a trap, and every time you bite, they tighten their grip on your reputation. They say things like, "Why are you getting so defensive?" Or, "See, you're always so sensitive." And then they sit back and enjoy the show while you try to clean up a mess they created. But when you stay composed, when you answer with calm precision, they start to look foolish. They expose themselves. Because their whole plan was built on chaos and you denied them that fuel, they'll stumble trying to find something to latch onto. And you'll still be standing, unshaken. You have to understand something deep here. Calmness is not about winning an argument. It's about winning your peace. It's about walking away knowing that no one had the power to pull you out of character. That's the real win. The world's loud. People are quick to judge. They don't always wait to hear the truth. So when you speak, do it with purpose, not panic. When you explain, do it with clarity, not combat. Your tone matters. Your energy matters. Keep it steady. Keep it strong. That's how you stay above the noise. Now, when people see you staying calm in the face of twisted words and misrepresentation, they might think you don't care. They might think you're weak. Let them misunderstand you, because real power doesn't beg to be understood. Real truth doesn't chase applause. It stands on its own. And when all the dust settles, when the noise dies down, people will remember how you handled yourself. Not what they said about you, but how you responded. That's your legacy. Not the rumors, not the lies, but the strength you showed when it would have been easier to snap. So the next time someone tries to twist your words, tries to gaslight you, tries to turn people against you using your own voice, don't fall for it. Don't rise to the bait. Stand still. Speak once, clearly. Then walk away if you have to. Because people who live in lies will eventually get tangled in their own web. But you've got a truth that doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. Let them twist, let them spin. You just keep walking tall with your peace intact. That's how you win the argument, by not letting it destroy your character. When someone twists your words, the natural instinct is to run after the lie. You want to fix it. You want to chase every person they spoke to. Explain yourself to every ear that heard a warped version of what you said. But here's the hard truth. Chasing every false version of your truth will exhaust your spirit and still leave you feeling misunderstood. That's why you need to stop chasing and start clarifying. Clarify once and do it with power. Do it with intention. When you speak, let your words be so grounded in clarity that they don't need to be repeated. Because when someone is committed to twisting your words, they're not misunderstanding you, they're manipulating you. And no amount of chasing will fix that. Your focus should be on planting your truth like a tree, not running after every leaf that blows in the wind. See, manipulators thrive in the confusion. They build their strength in the chaos. If you keep running after every accusation, trying to put out every little fire they start with your words, you'll burn out. Clarity isn't about defending yourself to everyone. It's about delivering your truth so clearly that it doesn't need defending. The moment you start chasing is the moment you lose the upper hand, because then you're playing their game on their field by their rules. But when you pause, ground yourself, and speak with intention, you shift the balance. You take the power back. You stop reacting and you start commanding. There's a difference between proving a point and standing in your truth. One is exhausting, the other is powerful. Sometimes the loudest response is the clearest one. Not because you shouted, not because you repeated yourself 20 times, but because your delivery left no room for doubt. You've got to make peace with the idea that some people want to misunderstand you. They don't twist your words because they're confused. They twist them because clarity threatens their agenda. So your job isn't to fight confusion, it's to remove it from your side. When you speak, strip away every chance for misinterpretation. Say what you mean, say it once, say it plainly. Because when you speak with crystal clear intention, You don't need to chase down every rumor. The people who are meant to understand will hear you, and the ones who want to twist will eventually tie themselves in knots. Chasing after every lie gives that person exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your frustration. You're pouring your soul into explaining a truth to someone who already decided not to hear it. That's not strength. That's surrendering your peace for the sake of being liked, being understood, being seen as right. But let me tell you, truth doesn't beg to be believed. It doesn't run from person to person hoping for validation. It stands tall. It stays firm. And you've got to stop treating your truth like it needs permission to exist. The more you chase, the more power you give away. Clarifying is not about convincing. It's about owning your voice and letting go of the need for universal approval. Have you ever tried to explain something calmly only for the other person to twist it the second you stop talking? That's the game manipulators play. They don't just lie about what you said. They rebuild it in a way that suits them, piece by piece. So here's what you do. Stop giving them new material. Stop over-explaining. Don't give them more to twist. Instead, go back to the original statement and clarify it with calm, precise, and simple language. Then step back. If they twist it again, that's on them, not you. When you learn to stop chasing people with your explanations, you'll learn how much energy you wasted trying to fix stories that were never yours to control. Think about this. Every time you chase a twisted version of your truth, you feed the lie, you give it more breath, you give it more life. But when you stop chasing and simply clarify your position, you cut off the oxygen. Let them spin, let them talk, let them manipulate, but you hold your ground. You don't owe 20 explanations to people who never asked for the truth in the first place. And if someone comes to you confused by what they've heard, you clarify it once. That's it. And if they choose to believe the twisted version after that, that's a reflection of them, not you. Protect your energy. Clarify with strength, then walk with peace. The people who matter will feel your truth. They'll hear your tone, your heart, your meaning. You won't have to fight for their understanding. So don't waste your words on those who are already committed to the wrong version of you. Clarification is like a spotlight. It reveals what's real. And once you've turned that light on, it's not your job to chase people into the shadows where they've chosen to hide. Let your clarification be the full stop at the end of the sentence. Not a comma, not an invitation, not a plea, a period. Let that be enough. Let it stand without needing to argue it. In every room they carry your name into, there is a kind of peace that comes when you finally realize you don't have to explain yourself to stay in integrity. Clarifying is for your conscience, not for their approval. It's for your growth, not their manipulation. And once you've said what needed to be said, you don't owe anyone a follow-up performance. This isn't a debate. This isn't a campaign. It's your truth. And when you clarify with confidence, you don't just protect your peace. You build a foundation that no lie can crack. Stand on that. Speak from that. And when they try to twist you again, they'll find nothing loose enough to bend, because your words are rooted and your truth is settled. Understand this. Twisted words can only survive in silence or confusion. When you shine the light of clear communication, you disarm their games. But that light doesn't need to follow them into every corner. Shine it once, shine it strong, and let it stay where it belongs, with you. Let them wander in their confusion. You've got better things to do than chase ghosts. You've got a life to live, a purpose to fulfill, and peace to protect. Clarify. Then stop. Because the more you chase, the further you drift from yourself. But the more you stand in clarity, the closer you stay to your truth. And that is where your real power lives. So the next time someone twists your words, don't run after them trying to unravel the lie. Go back to what you said. Make it clear, make it firm, and then be still. You don't need to chase down the misunderstanding. You just need to speak with such truth that it cannot be moved. People who want to believe the lie will ignore the truth no matter how loud you scream it. But the people meant to walk with you, they'll see it, they'll feel it, and they'll never need to be convinced. So speak once, clarify with courage, and then let the storm pass around you. You are not here to chase, you are here to lead. And leaders don't run after confusion. They stand in truth. They stand in strength. And so will you. When you speak facts, not feelings, you step into a power most people never realize they have. See, feelings are fleeting. They change with time, mood, circumstances, and even how much sleep you got the night before. But facts are rooted, they're steady. They don't shift based on who's listening or how they feel about it. When you walk into a conversation or confrontation based purely on how you feel, it can be dismissed. People will say that's just your opinion or you're overreacting, and they'll shut you down before you even make your point. But when you speak from facts, you give them something undeniable. Something that has weight. People can argue with opinions all day long, but the moment you lay out truth, you shift the dynamic. You stop feeding emotion and start commanding attention. And that doesn't mean you're cold or unfeeling. It means you're focused. It means you're driven by what's real, not by what's reactive. When you remove emotion from the equation and stand on facts, you protect your credibility. You don't sound like someone who's just venting. You sound like someone who came with receipts. And in a world full of noise, that clarity makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Now, don't get it twisted. Feelings are valid. Your emotions are signals, indicators of what matters to you, and they shouldn't be ignored. But when you let them drive the entire conversation, you risk becoming unstable in your delivery. People often tune out when emotions run too high, even if the message is important. That's why channeling those feelings through facts is key. You want to be heard, not dismissed. You want to be respected, not pitied. Speaking facts doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you've taken the time to sit with your emotions, understand them, and translate them into something concrete. That's discipline. That's control. That's emotional maturity. Imagine calling someone out and instead of saying, I feel like you don't care about me, you say, over the last 3 months, you've canceled every plan we made and never followed up. That's a pattern, not a feeling. That hits different. That hits hard. Because now it's not just your interpretation, it's evidence. It's something that forces them to look at their behavior rather than argue with your emotions. That's how you command respect. That's how you change the conversation. That's how you stop explaining yourself and start establishing your standards. You see, when you speak in feelings, people assume you want comfort. They assume you're looking for validation or reassurance. But when you speak in facts, people realize you're not looking for comfort, you're looking for accountability. That changes everything. You stop being perceived as needy or emotional and start being seen as someone who's observant and intentional. People start watching their behavior around you because they know you're paying attention. You're not just reacting to how something makes you feel. You're measuring actions, tracking patterns, and responding with clarity. That makes you powerful. And it also makes you untouchable in a world where most people live off assumptions. This doesn't just work in relationships, it works in business, leadership, and personal boundaries too. If someone disrespects your time, don't say I feel disrespected. Say you missed 2 deadlines without explanation. Facts draw a line that cannot be softened or reworded. You remove all wiggle room. That's the strength of detaching from feelings and anchoring yourself in truth. You become calm in chaos, clear in confusion, and strong when others try to rattle you. Because you're not here to be swayed, you're here to be heard. The moment you decide to speak from facts, you'll notice how quickly the dynamic of every conversation changes. People stop gaslighting you. They stop flipping the script. Because facts leave no room for manipulation. There's nothing to twist when you lay out reality. A manipulator feeds on feelings. They know how to turn I feel hurt into you're too sensitive. But what do they do when you say, on Tuesday, you said one thing. On Friday, you did the opposite. Here's the proof. They fall silent. They scramble. Because now they can't argue with your perception. They have to face the evidence. This is how you stay in control. This is how you keep your peace. You stop handing your power to people who thrive on emotional confusion. Instead, you give them facts so sharp they cut through every excuse. You're not here to beg someone to care. You're here to show them what happened. And when people see you're grounded in facts, they approach you differently. They know you're not someone they can spin. You're not someone they can distract with emotional manipulation. You came ready. You came prepared. And that presence, calm, clear, factual, is something they can't ignore. It's tempting to lead with emotion, especially when you're passionate about something. But if your goal is to be effective, not just expressive, then you've got to structure your delivery. Feelings can be messy, chaotic, and all over the place. But facts are organized. They help you deliver a message in a way that's digestible, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And when people can follow your logic, they're more likely to hear your truth. They may not agree, but they'll understand. That's progress. That's growth. You don't want to be known as the person who always feels some type of way. You want to be known as someone who sees what's happening and isn't afraid to say it. That makes you reliable, that makes you respected, and most importantly, that makes your voice a force. Every time you speak in facts, you train yourself to think critically and communicate clearly. You become more than emotional. You become effective. And in this world, effectiveness speaks louder than outrage. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about mastering them. You use your feelings to detect the problem, and then you use your facts to solve it. That's emotional intelligence at its highest level. There's also a sense of personal peace that comes when you know you're speaking from facts. You no longer carry the weight of trying to convince people with your emotions. You say what needs to be said and let the truth do the work. There's no need to yell, no need to beg, no need to repeat yourself 20 times. You lay the truth on the table and walk away. That kind of confidence can't be faked. It comes from knowing you're not reacting, you're responding. You're not spiraling, you're standing. You've taken time to understand the situation and present it in a way that no one can deny. That keeps your power intact, it keeps your energy protected, and it keeps your message clear. You won't get caught in emotional loops, repeating the same frustrations over and over. You've already said it. You've already proven it. You've already made your point. And from there, you move forward. Speaking facts gives you a solid ground to walk on when everything else feels shaky. It gives you clarity in moments that are otherwise fogged by feelings. And once you feel that stability, you'll never want to go back to emotional guessing games again. It also teaches people how to approach you. When you speak with facts, you signal to others that they need to come correct. You're not someone who tolerates vague excuses or emotional baiting. You're someone who values accountability, precision, and truth. And people notice that. They may not say it out loud, but they'll adjust. They'll become more careful with their words. They'll start double checking their stories. Why? Because they know you're not the one to try nonsense on. You've got too much awareness, too much evidence, too much discipline. And that earns respect even in silence. You don't have to flex. You don't have to be loud. Your clarity does the heavy lifting for you. And eventually your reputation will speak louder than your emotions ever could. People will know you're not someone who jumps to conclusions, but you're also not someone who lets things slide. You move from a place of wisdom, not impulse. That's a rare energy, and it attracts the right people while repelling the ones who can't handle accountability. And that's exactly what you want. You want to be surrounded by people who speak in truth, not in manipulation. When you stop speaking from feelings and start speaking from facts, you also improve your self-perception. You begin to trust yourself more. You don't second guess what you saw or what you know to be true. You don't gaslight yourself into thinking you're overreacting. You start to build confidence in your ability to observe, analyze, and speak with precision. That's an internal shift that nobody can take from you. Because now you're not just emotionally aware, you're logically sound. You start recognizing patterns faster. You start identifying red flags sooner. And when you confront someone, you don't feel nervous or anxious, you feel ready. You don't walk into that conversation hoping for understanding. You walk in knowing that you're bringing truth, whether they accept it or not. That inner clarity bleeds into every part of your life. You start making better decisions. You start cutting off what no longer serves you with no guilt. Because now your choices are backed by evidence, not emotion. You stop staying in situations out of fear, and you start moving based on facts. That's how you gain control over your life. That's how you reclaim your voice in a world that often tries to silence it with confusion. Even when the facts hurt, they still serve you better than comforting emotions ever could. Because facts lead you to action. They wake you up. They don't sugarcoat reality. They sharpen it. And in that sharpness, you find direction. Emotion might keep you stuck in a cycle, wondering, questioning, hoping. But facts will show you exactly what needs to change. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. That's where transformation begins. When you stop saying, I feel disrespected, and start saying, you've lied to me 3 times in 2 weeks, you're no longer in the emotional weeds. You're in the clarity that brings change. It may be painful, but it's honest. And honesty will always move you forward faster than wishful thinking ever could. That's why speaking facts isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. You care enough about yourself to deal in truth, not illusions. And that commitment to clarity builds strength that no emotional roller coaster can compete with. You're not just surviving situations anymore. You're understanding them, confronting them, and rising above them. Because your voice isn't just an outlet, it's a tool of awareness, a tool of leadership, a tool of undeniable truth. The world doesn't need more people who speak emotionally without thinking. It needs more people who think, feel, and then speak with purpose. That's what speaking facts is all about. It's not the absence of emotion, it's the alignment of emotion with truth. You still feel deeply, but you don't lead with it. You sit with it, you understand it, and you let it guide you toward the facts. That's wisdom. That's power. That's what separates leaders from reactors. When you speak facts, your voice cuts through noise. It commands attention, not by volume, but by substance. It doesn't just express pain, it exposes truth. And that's what makes it so powerful. People may ignore your feelings, but they can't ignore your facts. And once you master that, you become unstoppable, not because you're the loudest in the room, but because you're the clearest. Not because you're the most emotional, but because you're the most grounded. And in this chaotic world, clarity is the sharpest weapon you can carry. Use it wisely. Speak facts, not feelings. And watch how everything changes. When you see something wrong, something twisted, something manipulative, you have a responsibility to call it out. Not because you want to stir the pot, but because if you don't, the lie gains power. Yet, in a world where everyone takes everything personally, the challenge isn't just identifying the twist, it's addressing it without attacking the person behind it. This is where true strength of character comes in. You must learn to separate the action from the individual, the twist from the identity. You are not labeling them as evil. You are pointing out behavior that needs to be corrected. This is hard. It takes restraint, emotional intelligence, and a deep understanding of yourself and your purpose. Most people either stay silent to keep the peace or explode and create a war. But you, if you want real change, must walk that narrow road between truth and compassion. Calling out the twist means recognizing when someone bends facts to fit their comfort, manipulates stories to appear as the victim, or distorts reality to avoid accountability. We all know this happens, and we all know how often people get away with it simply because no one is willing to speak up. But calling it out doesn't mean burning bridges or humiliating someone publicly. It means looking them in the eye, holding your ground, and calmly naming what's out of line. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be honest and stay focused on the behavior, not the person. This is what mature confrontation looks like. It's clarity without cruelty. When you master that, you don't just correct the situation. You earn respect even from those who tried to twist the truth. There's a deep level of discipline required to confront without attacking. Most people either avoid confrontation altogether or lash out in anger. But when you call out the twist without tearing down the person, you do something radical. You show that truth can be delivered without hate. You prove that holding someone accountable isn't the same as hating them. You make room for growth instead of shame. That's powerful. And it starts with your tone, your intent, and your control. Don't let your emotions hijack the mission. Stay grounded in the facts. Speak from a place of clarity, not vengeance. The moment you make it personal, you lose your credibility. The moment you make it about who they are instead of what they did, you lose the point. Let your words be sharp enough to cut through the lie, but never sharp enough to wound the soul. There's a line between being bold and being brutal, and most people cross it without realizing. They confuse confrontation with condemnation. But that's not what this is about. You're not trying to win an argument. You're not trying to humiliate someone into submission. You're standing for what's right while preserving the dignity of both parties. You're separating truth from ego. And to do that, you need awareness. To ask yourself, am I speaking to correct or am I speaking to control? Am I calling this out to serve the truth or to serve my pride? Be honest, because when your heart is clean, your confrontation becomes medicine, not poison. You don't have to scream to be strong. You don't have to insult to be impactful. You can be calm and still be fierce. That's where real power lives, in restraint, not rage. The twist often hides behind emotion, deflection, or manipulation. It plays the victim. It dodges responsibility. It flips the narrative to make you question your own perception. That's why calling it out requires precision. You must be able to spot the subtle shifts in language, the little rewrites of history, the passive-aggressive digs that distort the truth. And when you see it, you can't let it slide. Not if you value honesty. Not if you respect yourself. But again, the goal isn't to attack. You're not out to destroy someone's character. You're out to restore the truth. And that means you confront the behavior, not the entire person. You stay anchored in facts, not opinions. You don't generalize, you specify. You don't accuse, you expose. You don't rage, you reveal. That's how you bring darkness to light without becoming a monster in the process. It's tempting to match the energy of the person twisting the truth. If they come with blame, you want to meet it with blame. If they manipulate, you want to expose them harshly. But you've got to rise above that. You don't fight fire with fire, you fight it with discipline. If they go low, you stay high. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You know that the moment you stoop to their level, the truth gets lost in the noise. So you hold your posture, you keep your integrity, you correct the record without dragging their name through the mud. You confront the lie without killing the relationship. And if they take it personally, that's on them, not on you. Your job isn't to manage their emotions. Your job is to protect the truth without losing your own character. That's how you lead. That's how you inspire change. One of the hardest things to accept is that some people will never acknowledge the twists. You'll call it out with grace, you'll avoid attacking them, and still, they'll get defensive. They'll deny it, deflect it, or accuse you of being the problem. That's okay. You're not responsible for their reaction. You're responsible for your delivery. Just because they won't accept it doesn't mean you were wrong to speak up. You're planting seeds. Sometimes people need time to process. Sometimes they need distance before the truth sinks in. But don't let their resistance make you doubt your clarity. Don't let their offense silence your voice. You did your part. You called out the twist with courage and compassion. That's rare. That's noble. And even if they never admit it, deep down they know the truth was spoken. You shook the illusion. You disrupted the pattern. And that matters more than immediate approval. Eventually, people will start to notice the way you handle conflict. They'll see that you don't gossip, you don't belittle, you don't shame. You confront directly, respectfully, and with purpose. And that builds a reputation. People trust those who speak the truth with grace. They listen to those who know how to correct without condemning. You become the kind of person others come to for clarity, not because you sugarcoat, but because you speak with balance. This skill, calling out the twist without attacking, will elevate you in every area of life, professionally, personally, spiritually. Because no one wants to follow someone who is loud and reckless, but they will follow someone who is grounded, clear, and just. So practice the art, sharpen your discernment, tame your tongue, speak truth boldly but with care. And remember, it's not about being right, it's about being righteous. That's how you create impact without leaving destruction in your wake. When it comes to conflict, especially the kind that hits close to home, emotions can cloud judgment fast. You're hurt, angry, disappointed, and you want to react. But let me tell you something powerful. Documentation is not just for courtrooms or business deals. It's a shield, a mirror, a weapon of peace and truth. When people twist your words, when they try to gaslight you, when they pretend things didn't happen the way you know they did, having a record saves you from falling into the trap. It's not about being petty. It's about being prepared. Start writing things down. Keep voice notes if you have to. Save messages, record events while they're fresh. Don't think, oh, I'll remember it later. You won't. Time softens details, but the written word doesn't lie. Your future self will thank you. And sometimes just knowing you've documented the truth gives you the peace to walk away gracefully. In personal relationships, people don't expect you to document things. That's why it's so powerful. When someone constantly rewrites history, turns every confrontation into a blame game, or makes you question your own reality, having proof, even for yourself, is a lifeline. You're not keeping score, you're keeping clarity. There will be moments when someone says, I never said that, or that's not what I meant. And without documentation, you're left standing in a fog of doubt. But if you've written it down, saved the text, or journaled the conversation, you won't be shaken. This isn't about revenge, it's about remembrance. You're guarding your mind, your emotions, your truth. In the middle of chaos, a written timeline becomes your compass. It reminds you that you're not crazy, that your perception is valid. And when the world tries to gaslight you into silence, your records will be your voice. Calm, clear, unshakable. Now, some people will try to make you feel guilty for keeping records. They'll say, why are you being so calculated? Or don't you trust me? But let me ask you this. Should trust require you to erase your memory? Should love ask you to ignore repeated patterns of harm? Absolutely not. People who fear accountability often label preparation as paranoia. Don't let that shame tactic work on you. When you document things, you're not building a case, you're building your awareness. You've shown yourself what's really happening over time, because emotional manipulation thrives in isolation and confusion. But documentation connects the dots. You'll start to see the patterns, the lies, the shifts, the cycles. It won't just be a feeling anymore, it'll be a timeline. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You'll know when it's time to walk away, not just because you're hurt, but because the facts are there to back up your peace. There's a kind of quiet strength in being able to recall the truth without the heat of emotion. When you document everything, you take the drama out of the story and replace it with clarity. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. Imagine someone confronting you, twisting what happened, trying to play the victim. You don't need to argue. You simply refer back to the facts. You stay grounded. That's what documentation gives you, emotional stability in the face of emotional chaos. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. The records speak for themselves, and even if no one else sees them, even if you never use them in a confrontation, just knowing you have the truth brings power. That notebook, that email trail, those journal entries, they become anchors. Anchors in a storm of confusion. Anchors that keep your truth intact when others try to tear it apart. You're not keeping receipts out of spite. You're keeping your sanity. Sometimes we forget the details of what we endured because our mind protects us by hiding the pain. But healing doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from understanding. And documentation helps you understand. You look back at those notes and realize, wow, I minimized this. I accepted this. I kept making excuses for this. That's when healing starts. When you stop pretending it wasn't that bad, when you stop letting people off the hook in your memory, your documentation becomes your reality check. It shows you what you tolerated, how often it happened, and what patterns you kept walking into. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's how you grow. That's how you stop the cycle, not by blaming yourself, but by being honest with yourself. Your journal, your screenshots, your emails, they're not weapons for war, they're tools for awakening. They help you see things for what they were, not just how you wanted them to be. You might think, but it feels wrong to document something against someone I love. That's natural. Loyalty and love make us hesitate. But let me ask you this, do they love you enough to be accountable for how they treat you? Because love without accountability isn't love, it's control. And if someone truly values the relationship, your record of truth shouldn't scare them. It should inspire them to grow. On the other hand, if they get angry at your documentation, maybe it's because they know they've been caught in patterns they don't want to own. That's not your fault. You're not documenting out of malice. You're protecting yourself from emotional harm. You're building a case for your healing. And sometimes that means having evidence, not to punish, but to protect. To help you recognize when it's time to stop fighting for someone who won't even fight for the truth. That's not betrayal. That's self-preservation. The more emotionally close someone is to you, the more dangerous it can be when they twist reality. Because they know your heart. They know your vulnerabilities. They know exactly how to make you doubt yourself. That's why documentation is even more crucial in personal relationships. It levels the field. It helps you detach emotionally just enough to see clearly. If you write it down, if you track the timeline, if you save what was said, then you have a mirror to reflect the truth. And that mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't sugarcoat, it doesn't manipulate, it shows you exactly how many times the same thing happened. And when your heart tries to justify staying, your record reminds you why you left. It protects you from going back into cycles that nearly broke you. And most importantly, it gives you the strength to hold your boundaries, not with anger, but with evidence and peace. You don't need to tell them you're documenting things. You don't need to announce it like a threat. This isn't a game. It's a practice of self-respect. You're building a record not to destroy them, but to protect yourself from being destroyed emotionally. Because some people are so good at playing innocent, so skilled at flipping the narrative, that you'll start to question your own heart. And when that happens, your records become your rescue. Your truth, your memory, your boundaries, all supported by proof. And when they try to paint you as irrational, oversensitive, or forgetful, you won't be shaken. You'll know the truth because you wrote it down when it was raw. You saw the moment as it was, not as they want to rewrite it. That's why you document, so you can live in truth even when others try to bury it, so you can move forward without carrying the weight of confusion. That's strength. That's wisdom. That's how you rise. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. It may not feel like strength in the moment. It may feel like defeat, like giving up. But walking away is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing that your energy, your heart, and your peace are too valuable to waste on people, places, or situations that no longer nourish your soul. So many of us stay too long in toxic environments, hoping things will change, hoping people will see our worth. But what ends up happening is we lose ourselves trying to make things work that were never meant to last. You were not created to constantly fight for love, respect, or peace. You were made to thrive, not survive. When a situation repeatedly robs you of your joy, that's your signal. That's the moment to recognize the cost of staying and the value of leaving. And nothing, absolutely nothing, is worth your peace. There will be people who tell you to keep trying, to hold on, to push through the discomfort, because nothing worth having comes easy. And while perseverance is often noble, there's a fine line between persistence and self-betrayal. You can't keep watering a relationship, a job, or a dream that's been dead for years and expect it to blossom. Walking away isn't quitting. It's choosing you. It's choosing to stop begging for the bare minimum. It's choosing not to stay in places where you constantly have to shrink yourself to be accepted. When you've done your part, when you've given your all, and the return is still pain, confusion, or disrespect, you owe it to yourself to walk. Your peace isn't just some luxury, it's your foundation. And if anything consistently shakes that, it doesn't deserve access to you. Not everything broken can be fixed. Not everything painful is part of growth. Sometimes it's just toxic. You don't need permission to walk away. You don't need a final argument, a perfect explanation, or a dramatic ending to validate your decision. Sometimes peace begins with silence. You just stop showing up for the drama, for the chaos, for the conversations that always end in you questioning your worth. You start realizing that closure isn't something they give you, something you give yourself. You close the door gently, quietly, and walk into your own healing. No grand declarations, no explanations that fall on deaf ears. Just a calm decision to choose yourself this time. And the world may not understand. Some may call you selfish, some may guilt you into believing you abandoned something too soon. But only you know the weight you carried. Only you know how hard you tried. When your spirit is tired and your heart is heavy, that's all the confirmation you need. Peace becomes the loudest reason of all. It's not easy walking away from people you love or from environments you once prayed to be a part of. The heart holds on longer than it should because it remembers the good times, the laughter, the potential. But potential can no longer be a reason to stay. You cannot live on hope alone. You cannot thrive in relationships that only exist in the best case scenario of your imagination. The longer you stay tied to something that hurts you, the more you lose touch with your own needs, your own voice. And eventually you forget what peace even feels like. You wake up anxious, go to bed drained, and spend your days trying to survive instead of live. That's not a life. That's a slow surrender. You were not made to constantly justify your presence. The moment you feel like you're begging for love, begging for clarity, or begging for respect, you're already giving too much of yourself. Sometimes you stay because of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being alone, fear that maybe this is the best you'll ever have. That fear is a liar. It whispers that you'll be empty without them, that your future without this job or this friendship is uncertain. And it's right, your future is uncertain, but it's also full of possibilities. Peace doesn't come from certainty. It comes from alignment, and you'll never find alignment in a place that demands your silence, your compliance, or your pain. The discomfort of walking away is temporary. The regret of staying too long, that can last years. The bravest thing you'll ever do is choose uncertainty over continued pain. The peace that waits on the other side of that decision is deeper than any temporary comfort you think you're holding on to. You are not walking away into emptiness. You're walking away into clarity, into wholeness, into a version of yourself that knows her worth. When you finally walk away, you'll realize how heavy it all was. The constant emotional labor, the overthinking, the justifications, the cycles of conflict and apology. When you leave, you'll start to breathe again. You'll remember what it feels like to laugh without guilt, to sleep without anxiety, to live without walking on eggshells. That's what peace gives you. It returns you to yourself. And the beautiful part is you won't need to announce your healing. It will show in how you move, how you speak, and how you protect your energy. Peace doesn't need to be broadcasted. It just radiates. And the people who were used to you being broken, dependent, or small, they may not recognize you anymore. That's okay. You're not walking away to hurt them. You're walking away to heal you. And healing, though painful at first, is always worth it. One day you'll look back and wonder why you stayed so long. Don't wait for it to get worse before you give yourself permission to leave. You don't have to be completely destroyed before you make a different choice. Your peace is not a reward you earn after you've suffered enough. It's something you're allowed to claim simply because you're alive. You are allowed to outgrow relationships that no longer serve you. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to prioritize your emotional well-being. Walking away might feel like loss at first, but it's actually the beginning of gaining clarity, gaining freedom, gaining self-respect. And no, it won't always be applauded. Some people will misunderstand, some will be angry, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your soul, to stop betraying yourself in order to be loved by others. You deserve a life where peace is not something you chase, but something you live in daily. That life starts when you walk away. The truth is, peace feels unfamiliar when you've lived in chaos for so long. It might feel boring at first. You may even miss the highs and lows, the emotional roller coasters. That's not love. That's trauma bonding. Peace is steady, it's quiet, it's consistent. It allows you to rest instead of brace for impact. And the more you walk in peace, the more you'll recognize how unnatural the chaos really was. You'll stop romanticizing dysfunction. You'll stop tolerating relationships that drain you. You'll start noticing how your body relaxes in safe spaces, how your mind gets clearer, how your soul feels lighter. That's when you know you made the right choice. Walking away wasn't failure, it was a declaration. A statement to the world and to yourself that you will no longer settle for pain disguised as love. You'll no longer participate in your own suffering. You chose peace. And that choice will lead you to a life that finally feels like home. When you've been in the fire too long, peace can feel like a foreign land. But let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. Peace is your home. It's where your soul breathes again. Life will always test you. People will twist your words, challenge your truth, and try to keep you in places that no longer align with your spirit. But you must learn that your voice matters, your boundaries are valid, and your peace is priceless. There comes a moment when arguing isn't worth it anymore. When trying to prove your point to someone committed to misunderstanding you only drains your spirit. That's when you rise above the noise. That's when you stop explaining yourself to those who only listen to respond, not understand. You speak truth without venom. You call out the manipulation without becoming part of the chaos. And when it becomes clear they don't care to hear your heart, you protect it by walking away. Not all battles are meant to be fought. Some are meant to be walked away from. Your dignity is not measured by how long you endure dysfunction, but by how boldly you choose your peace. It takes courage to step back and say, this is no longer for me. It takes strength to let go of situations that once defined your identity, but now only deplete your energy. And it takes wisdom to recognize that love, respect, and clarity should not be begged for. They should be given freely. You don't need to argue with someone who keeps twisting your words to fit their narrative. Let them speak. Let them project. But you move with integrity. You let your actions speak louder than their accusations. Because the truth always outlasts the lie, and peace always outshines the drama. Healing begins the moment you decide you're done betraying yourself to make others comfortable. It begins when you stop fighting to be understood and start standing in your truth, quietly, boldly, without apology. There's nothing weak about walking away. It's one of the most powerful moves you'll ever make, because when you walk away from chaos, you're walking toward peace. When you stop engaging with toxicity, you're honoring your worth. And when you no longer let someone's twisted version of you dictate your value, you reclaim your identity. That's what this is all about. Not revenge, not ego, but freedom. Freedom to live a life where you don't have to keep explaining, defending, or surviving. Just being. So keep your head high, your spirit grounded, and your peace protected. You don't owe anyone access to you who doesn't honor your truth. You don't owe another round of painful conversations just to prove your heart is pure. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself joy. You owe yourself the freedom to walk away and not look back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing yourself. And above all, may God bless you, protect your heart, and guide your steps toward a life that finally feels like peace.